Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
Hello, MacPack. It's great to be back with you again for another episode of our program. This is On the Move with Mac Worley. I, of course, am your host, Mac Worley III. We've got a really interesting show in store for you. I'm pretty excited about it. I have someone who I've watched his YouTube videos for quite a while. He's going to be joining us as a guest. His name is Brett Sanders, and we're going to be talking about liberty, activism, civil disobedience, things of that nature today. Brett Sanders has his YouTube channel. It is youtube.com/Brett Sanders. That's Brett with two T's, according to this here. Let me double check the URL on that. Make sure I'm giving you the right stuff. And yes, okay, so it's youtube.com/BRETTSANDERS. And he's got a lot of interesting stuff on his YouTube channel. He'll talk about liberty topics for one. Like, for example, right now his featured video, what is currently posted, I believe he posted this 4 hours ago today. He's paying a speeding ticket with a bucket full of pennies. So I'm really excited to have him on the show. It's going to be a lot of fun. And our featured topics for today are, first of all, the episode is titled Democratic Infighting. As I said, we're going to have our guest on, Brett Sanders. This is episode 120 of On the Move with Mac Worley. And let's see. Let's go through the feature topics here. So some of the topics we're going to talk about is Bernie Sanders' feud with Democratic leadership, how it's heating up. And I want to talk about something that we've won recently here, because I feel like we always lose. It seems like every time I'm talking about an issue, we are either talking about what has happened that is negative, and we don't really get very many opportunities to illustrate things that are good, where we have won something, where liberty has prevailed. It just seems like it's always focusing on the negative. So today, let's focus on the positive. The Little Sisters of the Poor, they have won. They have beaten the Obama administration. We're going to talk about that. And then I want to focus on Hillary Clinton and her attack on gun rights. I want to talk about some of the stuff coming from the Clinton camp about gun control and why we should be paying attention to this. So we got a whole lot of other stuff that we're going to be talking about, lots of other stuff in the news. And by the way, if you have anything that you would like to bring to the table, anything on your mind, give us a call. The number to the show is 360-450-5625. Again, that number is 360-450-5625. You can message us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. You can get us on Twitter @OnTheMoveShow. We'll read your messages live on the air. All right, so before we cut to a commercial break here and actually start going into our first segment when we come back from the break, we should be having, by the way, Brett Sanders will be joining us at 8:15 p.m. so Eastern Time. So that's 10 minutes from now, 9 minutes from now. He should be joining us. By the way, if you're new to the program, if you've never listened to our show before, we talk about all sorts of things: guns, government, liberty, philosophy, that kind of stuff. So if you'd stick around and listen to what we're about, I'd certainly appreciate it. Also, you can check us out at OnTheMoveShow.com. That's our hub. That's where we have everything. You can get the podcast if you want to go direct to that. It's Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. You can like our Facebook, Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. And follow us on Twitter, Twitter.com/OnTheMoveShow. Subscribe to us on YouTube, YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow. And I also have a blog that I've been posting on recently, and I'm going to talk about our latest post in a little bit. Our blog is onthemoveshow.blogspot.com, and my latest blog posting is a rebuttal to Republican Trump trauma. And I want to take a moment here just to kind of go over this with you all. This is a conversation that I've been having a lot this week, and I felt it necessary to kind of post it on the blog because it's it's a rebuttal to the conversation that I've been hearing from Republicans. Again, for the most part, I have historically sided with Republicans on many issues. But this one in particular is one where I'm noticing a big divide on. And what am I talking about? First of all, I'm hearing from Republicans over and over and over again. I'm having this conversation a lot lately. And they're saying that a vote for a third party is a vote for Democrats. Or anytime I say that I'm never Trump, or that I would never vote for Trump, they comment and say that I'm for Hillary, or I'm helping the Democrats. And this is one thing that I find particularly upsetting because, number one, you should. I'm having friends who are telling me that I'm for Hillary for this, and they should know better than that. First of all, if you know me, if anyone here knows me at all, you know I'm not for Democrats. I'm not, unless it's a pro-liberty Democrat. Now, if it's a Democrat who's not for gun control and wants to massively shrink the size of government and get the government out of your life and let the free market take control and do what it does best, then shoot, I'd vote for a Democrat who's for those things. But if you're talking about a progressive, socialist, communist, Marxist, I can't vote for those people. And that's exactly why I can't vote for Donald Trump. And it should be noted, I just think that it's kind of important that we look at things, the whole big picture here, okay? Donald Trump, he was a Democrat and an independent before he was a Republican, all right? So keep that in mind. The guy's flipped around on parties a little bit. So he's not like a lifelong Republican. And he's got a decade, several decades long records here of his stance, his progressive stance. And what do I mean by progressive? I don't mean like, as somebody in our chat has said, in our Facebook group, we've been having discussions about this kind of stuff all week. So one of our members in the group said, progressivism it's not bad. It's all it means is moving forward, moving your society forward. But no. Progressivism is like the Tai Chi of political philosophy. I call Tai Chi slow karate. It's very slow. So progressivism is a slow progression towards communism, towards Marxism, towards socialism. And you do this, they've done this as a 100-year plan. They know that it's not a palatable ideology to tell free people, hey, we're going to restrict the crap out of your rights and have the government get in between you and everything that you love and make your life more difficult, make your life more complicated, make your life worse, actually, because the government's in your way. So people don't like that. It's not a palatable idea to a free people. If you give them all at once communism or socialism, people don't like it. This is what progressivism is to progressively march us toward the cliff. And this is a problem within both parties. So my post that I put on our blogs, our blog, you can go to OnTheMoveShow.com and just click the blog link if you want to read it. I'll read it for you right now. I'm getting fed up with the amount of water carrying, and this is one point I want to make. There's so many Republicans who are making excuses after excuses about Donald Trump, and the amount of bullying that I'm seeing from Republicans who say a vote for a third party is a vote for Democrats. First and foremost, the bullying is kind of what drove me to do this, because I'm having people that are trying to manipulate me, bully me, and things like that. And I'm seeing it among others in our group and elsewhere. I'm seeing a lot of Republicans try to pressure people or tell people that if they don't vote for Trump because they have an ideological objection, a philosophical objection of voting for a progressive, that they're part of the problem. And this is something that I disagree with, and we're entitled to disagree, but to treat us like we're enemies of yours simply because we're not going to vote for your guy. We're not even voting for Hillary. We're voting for someone else entirely because we are never Trump, we're never Hillary, we're never progressive. Oh, and we're always Constitution. Which is, by the way, something that Donald Trump never talks about. So anyway, I go on, I say, first, and I've said this before, Republicans do not own my vote, I do. They have to earn it, and they have failed to do that once again. I'm not voting against my principles for for Republican Party anymore. I do not see a difference between these parties. Both want to march us off the cliff. Second, Republicans are overlooking the fact that Donald Trump is pro-big government, pro-tariffs, pro-universal health care, pro-amnesty, pro-eminent domain for private financial gain, pro-censorship of free speech, pro-buying politicians, pro-employing illegals, and more. If they want to ignore the obvious and abandon their principles because they're afraid of Hillary, that's fine. But I won't choose between one New York progressive and another New York progressive. I just think it's odd for someone to accuse me of helping the Democrats by voting for a Libertarian while my accuser is voting for a progressive. How do you expect to win if you never vote for your own ideology? Strategic voting is planning to fail. And I'm done with the strategic voting, folks. I think that the entire idea that we have to sacrifice our principles because we're so afraid of the other guy. We're so afraid of the other guy. Our argument is not even consistent. By the way, not even consistent, because if the idea here is to stop the other guy, honestly, let's flip the positions here. Donald Trump, he has been a Democrat before for a real long time, and Hillary Clinton, by the way, used to be a Republican before she was a Democrat. Let's flip spots here. If Hillary was the Republican candidate and Donald Trump was a Democrat candidate, would the argument still apply here? Would the fact that not voting for Donald Trump only help the Democrats? Is that the way? Because this is the way I'm hearing it. Not voting for Donald Trump or staying home only helps the Democrats. Would that still be the case? Of course not. This is a complicated issue. It's not a black and white. I'll tell you one thing that is black and white. Voting for Donald Trump in the primary was a vote for Hillary Clinton, because you right there, you've gone against the conservative base and decided that you would like to eject the people who are philosophically, ideologically opposed to progressivism. You've ejected them from the party. And at this point, this is my opinion, and you know what? I'm probably going to be wrong. It's fine. I've been wrong before. I think Donald Trump's going to lose to Hillary Clinton because I just don't think that you can win without the base, unless they're converting a lot of these Democrats into Republicans, where I think that they're just going to turn the Republican Party into the new Democrat Party. You're going to have a bunch of these squishy middle people inside the party being the base and completely abandoning any kind of principles or loyalty to the Constitution. It's not something I want to sign up for, and I don't understand how you think, as a conservative, your ideology can win if you just decide that you're never going to vote for it because, if you do, you're voting for the other guy. Anyway, we're going to have to cut to a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to be back with Brett Sanders. You guys don't want to go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore, with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us, support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
All right, gang, we're back, and we should be joined by Brett Sanders in a few moments here. Looks like this is him calling in. Hey, caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from? Oh, sorry, I got you on mute. 1 second here. All right, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Brett Sanders from Frisco, Texas.
All righty, there we go. Got you on the line. First and foremost, I just want to say I'm a big fan of your work. I've watched your YouTube videos for quite a while. I'm a big fan of your First Amendment Friday video series that you have done.
Yep.
And first, before we get into everything, I want to give you an opportunity. I'd like to give our guests a chance to plug anything that they got going on. So if you got a website, social media, any kind of events that you have going on, feel free to plug it now.
Yeah. You can follow me on Facebook, Brett Sanders on YouTube. I'm also Brett Sanders. Got a website, brettsanders.me, where I cover activism or anything like controversial, some investigative journalism. And on Twitter, Brett Sanders. I'm easy to find online.
All right. So, first and foremost, for somebody who doesn't know anything about you, go ahead and give them a rundown of the kind of stuff that you do on your YouTube channel and website and all that.
Sure. So, for all intents and purposes, I'm just a normal, regular guy who works in the IT industry, who stumbled upon this idea that we have freedom innate within all of us. And through that, I followed a lot of different activists who sort of molded my perspective. But at the end of the day, I see government as basically a monopoly on force. And I came from sort of a constitutional limited government approach. And, if we could only get back to the Constitution was sort of my original idea. That's kind of how I was raised. But then I kind of just dug deeper into this idea, and it seems that all problems in almost all roles and services that government does provide could easily be replaced by free market principles, meaning thousands of people all competing to provide services, and we know when there's competition in a marketplace, the quality goes up and the price goes down. And with a government monopoly, we have essentially just a bunch of centralized group, an organization, who tries to build things likely very inefficiently. So they use our tax money and they just keep asking for more and more and more. And I'm just very afraid that we're going to reach a boiling point. And so, basically, long story short, what I do is I create content mostly through video on YouTube to try and spark that liberty idea that was kind of grew in me, and trying to spread that message to other people. Because at the end of the day, the more people that understand liberty, basically the more peace and prosperity that all of us will have. And so that's all I basically do, and that's my hobby. That's what I do in my free time, and that's sort of who I am.
So I'm hearing a lot of words that are kind of like red flags for me for libertarianisms. So let me ask you: do you consider yourself a libertarian?
Yes.
That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah. Most people, I consider myself a libertarian, and if you even want to take it a step further and call myself like a free market anarcho-capitalist, that's kind of the buzzword that I would use. But most people know libertarianism, but you'll find out that no two libertarians have agree on anything, right? So
yeah.
I try to narrow it down to anarcho-capitalist because I believe in free market for everything.
So, okay, well, this is a great point that I'd like to actually ask you, because I'm a minarchist in and of itself. I believe that there is some very small, limited role of government, but I think that we ought to only use government where the free market forces produce not even bad results, but horrible results, like not having a military. That would be completely leaving us wide open. I think, and I think that in and of itself, I think that we should try to do as much as we can at the lowest level when it comes to a military, which is why I'm for having the military for the homeland mostly being a militia. But I think we ought to have the federal government, as the Constitution says, be in charge of the Navy. That's their role. Keep people from getting here. But as far as having a standing army here on our own soil, I don't think that's a good idea. But I do think that the federal government and the president ought to be in charge of the military to a certain extent. As far as some of the things that you would replace, would you try to privatize the military, or how would you deal with that?
Well, I mean, if I could snap my fingers and have my utopia, I would basically end all nation states and have everything that's private property. So there would be no, there would be the concept of like shared roads or shared sidewalks or shared borders or beaches. Everything would be privatized. So at that point, you've basically decentralized your population, and you have a government of 350 million individual governments, basically, right? And so I think that's so far off. It's almost futile to debate. But
yeah.
Just because if America went to a free market capitalist society tomorrow, and there's still nation states across the pond, that could be a tricky situation.
Yeah.
But I think we will find that when you have a free market economy, trading is much more preferred to dropping bombs on people. And so I think war is really a product of nation states, and the idea that we are a one big collective, one big country, and we have this idea that, we're better than other countries, or, we're mightier, and we need to drop bombs on people and create chaos all around the globe, really under this facade of security. And I think if you were to dig deeper into war, you would find most of it is just government protectionism, where governments and corporations have merged and they use war to meddle the market and take over, oil resources or you name it. If there's a limited resource, there's probably going to be a war over it. And so I think America has really been duped into believing that we're under attack, all the time, and we've got all these, what I like to say, CIA-created, terror cells that are pointing their guns at us, and so we need to grow our military, and we need more war, and this and that, and I think that more war just breeds more war, and so the more war we have, the more chaos we have, and it's a gross, in my opinion, it's a gross misuse of resources, to create all these warships and planes and bombs and to pay our military and all this. I think it's a gross. I mean, if we put their minds, there are bright minds in the military, and I believe that they should be better served than to be in the war machine. So if we put all these bright minds into the private sector, think of all the technology that came out of the military and was actually a use and an asset to us, could be used to create, we don't even know. And so, we have, I just see it as a gross domestic use of resources, and I think we've got better ways, and I think we could have a lot more peace and prosperity if we, basically had that private property concept.
So, I won't disagree with you about the way that our government has got us involved in wars and created situations like, for example, we invade Iraq, then Obama pulls up stakes and leaves Iraq, creates a power vacuum. Al-Qaeda in Iraq, we're giving them weapons out of Benghazi. After we pull up stakes in Iraq, they rush Iraq and basically take over all of the weapons that the Iraqis leave behind. We're training them, funding them, providing them with weapons. They turn into ISIS, and now we have the situation with ISIS, which I'm adamant that within the next, I don't know, 6 to probably closer to 12 to 18 months, we're going to have thousands of U.S. troops on the ground in Syria fighting ISIS, supposedly. But it's really just about the regime change in Syria. They want to get rid of Bashar al-Assad, I think is his name, if I'm remembering right. The president of what was, I guess, once Syria, because you can't really call it Syria anymore. The battle lines have changed the geography out there so much. So anyway, one of the things I want to get to is the point that you made about collectives. Basically, I don't have any issue with collectives. I disagree that there's such a thing as a collective right. I think that all rights are based upon the individual rights, and individuals have a right to organize and assemble together and work towards common goals. The idea of government is that, at least the way our founders looked at it, is that we have a right to protect our belongings, our property, our lives, our liberty. And the reason why we form government is to collectively work towards protecting those things, because it makes it so much easier to live your life as long as you because if you don't work with others to protect your stuff, you assume that everyone else is out to get you, basically, and you have to protect your stuff from them. So rather than just sitting around all day trying to protect your stuff, you can actually go out and be a productive member of society if you have a government where people are working to protect collectively. So, do you disagree with that principle? Do you think that it's best that we don't work together as collectives to do that, or I'm just trying to understand and pin down where you stand on that philosophy?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of part of our culture. It's so embedded, in our school systems and stuff that we fly this American flag, and we are proud of our heritage and our roots in liberty. We like to talk about that, but if you look at that, I mean, we look at other countries and we all assume that we're so much better, we're so much more prosperous, we're so worth defending. Which obviously our lives are very important and our property is very important. But it's a dangerous concept when we look at other countries as a enemy, right? If they're not American, then they're our enemy, and we should, it's amazing to see people who have no real idea on foreign policy or the concept of wars, but they cheer and applaud when American bombs are blowing up, quote unquote target, terrorist cells or whatever. And, we cheer. We see that on the news, and we're like, yeah, let's take them out. But we have no idea the destruction and the innocent lives and people who, weddings and hospitals. I mean, we're American taxpayers are literally killing innocent people. And so if you think about it and you flip the script, and let's pretend like China was dropping bombs on American quote-unquote terror cells, and our friends and family who did nothing wrong were dying, I would probably become a radical, militant and go fight China. And so I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to think that maybe these people are just really pissed off that their lives, their cities, their friends and family are being killed by American snipers and bombs. And it's not surprising that there is some blowback from that, and we're seeing it after the Iraqi war, and with the whole Middle East. It's completely worse than when we started. So, well, not to quote Donald Trump, but if we just stayed on the beach the whole time, I think we'd be a lot better off than where we're at.
I can understand your point of view on this. This is one that you and I just will probably end up disagreeing on, but I'd like to hear what you think about this, because I can understand why you can say that our involvement in the Middle East obviously isn't making us any friends. The way that we've had, we rush in there, we create the power vacuum. Again, lots of lives have been lost in this process. We have made some mistakes. I think that we shouldn't have went in there in the first place. When we went in there, I said it back then. I said that we shouldn't be pulling out now, because again, I'm concerned about stability in the region and power vacuums that are created. What happens when Obama leaves? We create the power vacuum. ISIS takes control. Now, I get that there's a lot of animosity in this region towards Americans and the American government itself. But one of the things I will say is that we're not just fighting these people because we've got them angry or we've blown up their city or something like that. This has an ideological component in there when it comes to the literal interpretation of Islam from the Quran and the Hadith and the Surah. These people in ISIS, they actually believe that what is in the Quran and the Hadith and the Surah is the revealed word of God. That the Prophet Muhammad is saying things that Allah has told him, and these are the way it should be, the way they should live their life. Part of that is that you can kill infidels, people who don't believe in your ideology, and they have a prophecy that they think that they're fulfilling. The guy who's in charge of the Islamic State, he actually changed his name to it's Abu something. He changed his name to what the prophecy said the guy's name was going to be. And they really do think that they're fulfilling the prophecy for their religion, for Islam, to conquer the world and essentially enslave anyone who is not who's not going to convert to Islam. And I understand that I don't believe in that ideology. I don't think that they're actually fulfilling the prophecy, but the problem is they do. And there is an ideological component here that it's more than them just not liking us and them being pissed off because we bombed their cities at some point or another, or that they've lost somebody that as a result of our actions. Some of this has driven people into that ideology, but now we're dealing with a society, as far as the people who believe in this interpretation of the Hadith and the Quran, that will stop at nothing to kill us and destroy our way of life. Do you disagree with that aspect of it, or do you just think that it's just not a possibility that these people can be a threat to us?
Well, sure. I mean, you're going to have your religious, brainwashing or whatever, that these people believe that they can incite violence based on their religion. And, it's absurd, but it's truth and it's reality where they are causing a lot of havoc. But I don't buy the argument that we are under this terrorism threat, behind every blade of grass, basically. I shouldn't have to give up any of my liberty in order to sacrifice or to have some security provided by government, right? TSA is a perfect example. It's like, I'll take the risk. It's a whole scam anyway. These people have been proven that they can't secure anything. I mean, they like guns and knives all the time. Yeah. But
they got a 95% failure rate. The TSA has a 95% failure rate.
There you go. Yeah, and the lines are ridiculous now. So, but no, I don't buy the threat level, that the propaganda that they push out. I just don't buy it. And, if you're a constitutionalist, then let's have an imminent threat, some sort of attack or something that we can see coming or whatever, and declare war. But we don't do that. We just have all these military conflicts where the president can just wave his wand and drop bombs, which is a extremely dangerous thing. And, it was Ron Paul was very behind that. Like, if you want a war, let's declare a war. Let's take it to Congress and we'll vote on it, and it will be of the will of the quote-unquote people, closer than one man behind a desk that can just literally almost like play video games and drop bombs on countries. And they do everything kind of, under the guise of security and classification, right? So everything's top secret. And so it's just the president is literally just a war machine. And it'd be nice if we could take that back and have at least congressional control over what we're doing. We can hold these people a little more accountable. But I'm not an expert on foreign policy, but I'm definitely anti-war, and I can see the destruction that it is and the enormous costs. I mean, if you just look at what we've spent and the results that we've got with that, it's pretty depressing. So that's kind of where I stand. I see war
I get where you're coming from.
Just a bad thing.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I'm anti-war myself. I don't want to see us go to war with anyone. But I also, I'm also a realist, and I understand that, countries, just like people, will act within their own self-interest. And if a country thinks that we're standing in between them and whatever goal that they have, it may be within their self-interest to knock us out. And I'm not over here trying to assume that everybody is our enemy, but at the same time, I understand that that people will act in their own self-interest. And I just, when we're talking about terrorism, I think that they believe it's their own self-interest to fight us and to try to destroy us. And if we're talking about places like Russia wants to put the old Soviet Union back together. China wants to get more power. We got a lot of issues going on in the world right now. Iran, North Korea, all of these things. I don't want to put our head in the sand or try to live in a giant bubble because I'm afraid of what could happen. But at the same time, I don't think that we need to continue to fight these foreign wars for resources when we have so many resources here in our country that we're not even allowing ourselves to tap into. We could be energy independent and not worry about what's going on in the Middle East. We could, instead of having a policy of containment like the Obama administration says, we could actually keep those suckers in there and let them fight it out amongst themselves until they sort it out and figure out what they're going to do. But I digress. I don't want to talk about foreign policy too much because I wanted to get into activism, liberty thought, and stuff like that with you as far as the channel. You mentioned one thing that I want to actually touch on before we cut to a commercial break. You said you're concerned about America reaching a boiling point, and I was curious, what did you mean by that?
Well, I mean, we're obviously in a decline, right? Our economy is bad. We've outsourced, all of our manufacturing, and there's really, America doesn't produce anything anymore. So we're literally just a debtor nation, and the debt just keeps accumulating in at fast and alarming rates. And I just see that when people get desperate, if they can't find a job and they can't provide for their families, I think it's going to get probably violent. And I think until people can see past all the crap that's put in front of them on TV and on the news and go to the source of the problems and understand why we're in these situations, we're never going to fix anything. We're just going to keep going down the wrong road, and I think people are just going to get really mad. And we've seen very small situations in Baltimore and Ferguson where when people get very mad, they do very destructive things. And I think we're a lot closer to that than people want to admit. But yeah, it's just basically it all hinges on the economy. And if we can't produce anything in this country anymore, we're going to be in a bad situation. So that's the boiling point I was talking about.
Yeah, and I've been talking about this boiling point as well. I think that you add everything together. I feel like we are two cultures right now within one society. Those that are, just want to be free and be left alone, and those that want the government involved in every aspect of your life, the statists. For me, what I also see injected into this is the racial tension coming from things like the Black Lives Matter movement, and it's a more militant feel. It reminds me more of like the Black Panther movement than Dr. Martin Luther King freedom walkers. But I see this, and also I understand the entitlement mentality of a lot of people who are receiving a government dole, something, a check from the government in some way. And not everybody is like this, but what I've been warning about is if we do have economic problems to where everybody in every city in America is struggling. The economy is collapsed, and you're not getting your government check. You're not getting your EBT, your SNAP benefits, food stamps, and I think that if we are to see riots, it'll either be because of these political conventions that are coming up here on either side. I think we're going to see the Bernie Sanders supporters within the Democrat Party really, really upset at this Democratic National Convention. But also, if it's not that, I'm predicting that if we have an economic collapse and people's food stamps stop getting loaded on their EBT cards, we're going to see riots at grocery stores, and it's going to start to expand from there, especially if it's happening in every city in America, and the government just cannot afford to pay people food stamps anymore. I think we're going to see it all start to explode out from the grocery stores. Would you agree with me on that one?
Absolutely. And it may not be that the cards don't work, but what is on the cards will not be able to buy what they're used to buying because prices will rise, so fast. Mm-hmm. We've already seen this where the Fed is monitoring the inflation, and they think inflation's a great thing because it encourages people to spend their money. But if they rise too fast, their EBT cards aren't going to buy what they did last week and the month before, and they're going to be shortchanged, and they could get a little angry about that. Yeah, and the entitlement society is growing, right? I mean, it's why work if you don't have to? There's no incentive to provide, and if you've got all your needs met, some people are just not willing to, basically work or produce anything when they've got everything taken care of. So, so there may be a tipping point there too, where the productive can no longer support the load that we're carrying. So, it's a very interesting time to be alive. To see this empire just grow so fast. When you just look at the debt numbers, it's hard to get your mind around it. That the debt is so. I mean, it's ridiculous at this point. I mean, there's no way all the money on Earth could pay this back, and so we're going to come up on a number or something, or triggering an event or something, and I think we're going to see a societal breakdown of some sort. I don't know if it'll come all at once, or we'll see little chinks in the armor here and there, but I try to be prepared and frugal and live my life as free as I can while we can still enjoy it.
Yes, sir. All right, so we're going to cut to a commercial break. Would you mind hanging out with us through the break? I'd like to continue talking to you.
Sure.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll be right back, gang, after this with more with Brett Sanders. We're going to talk about activism, civil disobedience. I want to actually talk a little bit about his YouTube channel and whatnot, some of the videos he's got on there, and get his take on them. Anyway, we'll be right back after this break, gang. You don't want to go anywhere.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
All right, gang, we're back. If you'd like to join today's conversation, a number to the show is 360-450-5625. Again, that's 360-450-5625. You can get us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Send us a message on there, or tweet us at OnTheMoveShow. All right, we're still with Brett Sanders. Brett, you still there?
I'm here.
All righty. So very first thing I want to talk about here next is your YouTube channel. I see your latest video is how to pay a speeding ticket, and the thumbnail is you dumping out a bunch of pennies at the window from a bucket. You want to give us a little bit of backstory on this?
Yeah, sure. I actually just released this today, and it's starting to get pretty popular. It's getting shared around quite a bit. I just received a typical speeding ticket. I was going 39 and a 30. I was on my own residential street right in front of my house and got a ticket. I took it to court and fought it for a jury trial here in Texas and lost, of course, and took all the way up until like the very last day that I had to pay it, and just decided that, you know what, I see this as theft. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't hurt anybody. I didn't endanger anybody's life. And I just think it's wrong to demand that I pay money to the government for really not doing anything wrong. I broke one of their rules, but I just see it kind of as an arbitrary rule, right? It's not like you're hurting someone or damaging property. And so we call it like a victimless crime, right? So it's a crime, but there's no victim. Mm-hmm. And that shouldn't really exist. But anyway, so I decided to get a little creative, and I created a video where I basically unwrap 20,000 pennies and put them into buckets, and I put policing for profit on one bucket and extortion money on the other bucket, and took a camera guy in there, and he filmed me basically just dumping the pennies on this bureaucrat's window, and I told him, mail me the receipt, and walked out. And it was funny because I didn't know how they were going to take that. I didn't know if they were going to try to refuse it or what. But I got a call about 4 hours after I filmed the video, and they said they had counted it and I'd overpaid, a few dollars or something, and they have my change and it's going to be in the safe. And so, in my mind, I'm like, I'm not going back for that. You guys can just keep it. Yeah. Keep the change there. And so I had some fun and tried to embed some messaging and use some terms not really associated with speeding tickets. Most people, they just, they get the fine and they're busy and they can't take off time work, and so they just pay the fine or make a deal where they can do defensive driving or something and just pay the fee. But I took it all the way and took the full fine amount right on the chin. And it didn't sit well with me, and so I just tried to, create a video that can maybe spark some ideas in someone's mind. So you'll see some subliminal messages in there and some different ways to call different terms. And so hopefully someone out there will watch that video and maybe do some Googling after they watch it.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me some of the other videos that are kind of like stand out in your mind, some of the things that you've done so people can go and look for them and see what you're talking about.
Yeah, sure. So when I first started my YouTube channel, I sort of modeled it off of Jeff Gray in Florida. He has a similar YouTube channel. And he basically walks up to government buildings or facilities or schools or anything, any government facility, just walks up with his camera and just starts taking pictures. And I was amazed to find out the number of police and security who would absolutely hassle him for essentially exercising his constitutional right, freedom of the press, or, his First Amendment. And so he would always be in this battle where the cops would demand his ID, they would detain him. He even got arrested a few times. And so this is a problem that these police have these attitudes that they just want to come up to you and demand your ID for not doing anything wrong. And so I figured, it'd be an easy video to make, and so I just started making those videos. And I put a little extra production value in there, I guess, with the way I edit it and put it to music sometimes. And so, it got pretty popular, and that's the majority of my YouTube audience basically found me through those videos. And I've sort of branched off, and I've kind of put my journalist hat on a few times where I broke some stories on my website and YouTube channel, and I cover different activism events. If there's a big rally or a march or something, I try to capture that because so many people like the idea of attending movements or being part of a movement. And, it's hard to just break into that crowd. And when you can see what it is and the ideas and the people who are actually in these movements, I guess it's not as intimidating to, join, right? And so that's kind of what I try to do. And I'm not saying I'm doing it right or I'm doing it wrong, but I know a lot of people have reached out to me and said, hey, I think you take the right approach to these situations and you handle yourself well with these police and authority figures. And I've got a lot of compliments. So I'm doing something right. And so I tell people I'm going to keep doing it as long as people watch and I get constructive feedback and I feel like I'm making a difference. Otherwise, I'll just go fishing. I'd much rather do that.
Well, I can definitely tell you that your videos resonated with me, and obviously they resonate with other people as well. You've got over 7.2 million views right now on YouTube, 27,808 subscribers as far as what I'm seeing right now. So obviously your voice is resonating with a lot of people. And I like what you're doing. I do think that the way that you're doing it, the way that you handle yourself with the officers is the right way to go about it. When you are dealing with officers and they ask you for your identification, this is one of the things that I talk about a lot, all the time actually, because I don't know if you know anything about me, but I was unlawfully arrested for open carry a few years back.
That.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you've seen it. Okay, so I have conversations with people all the time about about how I didn't give my identification to police officers, and I'm willing to talk with them and stuff, but I don't want to sacrifice my rights simply because I was asserting one of them, which made them ask me what I was doing out there and demand my ID, demand me to turn off my camera, stuff like that. So, what is your response to somebody who says if a police officer asks you for your identification, just give it to him? What do you say to that?
I'll say, well, yeah, sure, I could do that, and I could just make him happy, and it would totally dissolve the situation. I would probably be on my way. But how far do we take this? I mean, do we do anything they say? Because there's plenty of cops out there who give unlawful, unjust orders, and so if you talk to Jews in the 40s, I mean, they probably wish they put up a bigger fight. Instead of just getting on the train and ultimately being enslaved, there's a time to put a line in the sand. And, refusing to show someone ID or cop ID is a pretty low bar, I mean, in the scope of things to try and stand on. And so it's a fairly low risk. They may escalate the situation and you can make a decision if you want to comply or take it all the way. But yeah, just simply asserting your rights, I mean, that's as American as you can get, and standing on principle and not just bowing to their authority. It sends a message that, hey, we still have some resemblance of freedom in this country, and we're not going to give it away. And if you just comply, eventually you just die. And I'm here to fight, and I think the minds of the people are ripe to hear a message like this. And more and more people, more and more good-hearted people, good, productive, peaceful people are running into bad police situations. And most people, they don't understand the policing issues that we have until they actually go through the system or have a family member go through the system, and they just see the corruption at every level. You've got your street cops, and then you've got your prosecutors, and then you've got your judges, and then you've got these mindless juries that do whatever they say. And so it's a very slippery slope, and if we don't start standing up for what we have, you will find those rights slowly slipping away. And so I think it's a good way to kind of empower people, to encourage them to, you can, very politely assert your rights and say, I'm sorry, officer, but you don't have this authority to demand my ID unless I've committed a crime or something to that effect. And so you don't have to be a jerk about it. And sometimes my emotions take over, and I kind of come off as a jerk. But at the end of the day, you're the one with the gun. You're the one impeding my life in some way. And I don't think we should take that lightly. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
I agree with that. So I'm curious, as far as where you stand on this election cycle. What we've been seeing with we only got about 3 minutes left in this hour. So if you can just give me the cliff notes here, what do you think about choosing between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton? You said you're a libertarian. I'm assuming you're going to vote for a libertarian, maybe, or maybe you're one of those libertarians that don't believe in voting. What do you think?
Oh man, I'm always back and forth on this issue. But as a libertarian, Donald Trump has done more for libertarianism than any presidential candidate in recent history, besides Ron Paul, obviously, for like the PC political correctness issue that we have going on right now, and also the media bias. And he has just railed on both of those topics, and that's why he's so popular, is because Americans are so fed up with, walking on eggshells and being afraid to express ourselves and our own ideas, that they're really latching on to Donald Trump. And for those two things, I think it would be very refreshing to have him in the White House. Now, he's horrible on, economics, and he's slightly better on war, in my opinion, than Hillary Clinton would be. But the Libertarian Party is still in the kiddie pool in as far as politics go, and they're not going to be winning any elections here anytime soon. That's not to say you shouldn't go take the vote and try and grab some more percentage points. But at the end of the day, you're going to have Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump as your president, and I think we'd be doing ourselves a little better of a service if we just picked it for Donald Trump and avoided, Hillary Clinton. There's probably no right answer there, but it's truly the lesser of two evils, and I'll take less evil if I have to.
All right. Well, this is where we disagree, but, I respect your opinion. I'm not going to try to change your mind or anything. First, I just want to say thanks so much, Brett, for joining us on the show. It really was awesome talking to you. Will you come back again and talk to us again sometime?
Sure, it's been an honor. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, thanks so much. And by the way, one more time, what was that website and social media, all that stuff?
Brett Sanders, basically on all the social media platforms, and then BrettSanders.me. I do some blogging here and there.
All righty. Well, thanks again, man. I look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Take it easy. And for those of you on the 405media.com, we only broadcast the first hour of the program over there, so feel free to join us at Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow for the second and third hour, or you can just go to our website, OnTheMoveShow. Everything will be there as well. Big shout out to the 405 Media. Thanks so much for listening to us over there, guys. It really means a lot, and I really appreciate what the 405 Media does. All right, so we're going to cut to a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to dive into the featured topics. I want to talk a little bit more about what we were talking about. Me and Brett were talking about as far as the election, his decision to go with Trump. This is an interesting conversation. I think it's something I'd like to have with you. If you'd like to join today's conversation and talk with me about it, if maybe you disagree or agree with me, I'd love to talk with you. I don't care what your opinion is. Let's hash it out. Let's talk. The number to the show is 360-450-5625. Again, that's 360-450-5625. Or you can get us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow, or you can get us on Twitter at OnTheMoveShow. Anyway, we'll be right back after this break, gang. You don't want to go anywhere.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore, with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us, to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
Hey. We're back. This is the second hour of On the Move with Mac Worley. If you're just joining us, first of all, I just want to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to consume some of your time. And I know that's valuable, so I'll try not to waste it. We try to talk about big topics here. Try to think big, talk big, all that good stuff. So let's kind of go over some of the stuff that I talked about with Brett, and some of the things that we agree on, disagree on. First of all, did you guys like having him on? I really did. I thought he was awesome. I really enjoyed talking with him. I love having conversations with people that are into, really far into the philosophy of libertarianism, and it's funny to see how it can kind of branch out into different areas. As he said, no two libertarians probably see eye to eye on every single issue. It's just you can have the same philosophy and figure things out differently, and you can articulate them. And for the most part, I can have a conversation with somebody who I disagree with, and they can articulate why, and I can understand their point of view. I may disagree with it, but I can understand their point of view. Like, for example, he was talking about the Donald Trump situation. All right, he says it's a lesser of two evils. He'd rather vote for Donald Trump because Donald Trump is probably less evil, less bad in comparison to Hillary Clinton. And for me, I can see why he would say this. I just disagree. First of all, I don't really see a huge difference. I just see differences of the issues that they care about. I think they both are marching us towards that cliff because they're both progressives. Donald Trump believes in protectionism. He wants to completely control the economy, essentially start to have tariffs, and what that will do is put thousands of Americans out of jobs, and it will devastate our economy, which is already only hanging by a thread because we don't produce anything here. So that will lead us towards the abyss, I think. And in addition to the fact that Donald Trump doesn't have any problem with big government, he's not a small government guy. He's a big government guy. This is the guy who was for longer waiting periods on background checks, for bans of very popular semi-automatic rifles. This is what this guy is about. He's a big government guy. In fact, he's such a big government guy that he's for collusion between big business and government. This is what he's done as a businessman all his life, which is one of the reasons why I just do not accept the argument from people who are talking about how good Donald Trump will be for the economy, for the country, because he's going to run it like a business. Well, the way Donald Trump has succeeded in business is to collude with the government. He's carved out special favors. He's used the government's loopholes. These are all the things that he's admitted to, and he's bought politicians. Bought and paid for. You give them a donation, as he says, they'll do whatever the hell you want. All right? I don't accept the fact that he's this brilliant businessman because he's been able to collude with the government. If you give someone an unfair advantage, of course, they're going to be a good businessman. You give them an unfair market advantage, they're going to do well. At least they ought to do well. And it's important to note that Donald Trump has had bankruptcies, more than one. Now, he's not going to admit that they're his companies, but still, how do you bankrupt a casino, number one? And number two, how do you bankrupt a casino that has ties with the government because you've continued to donate and you get all these special favors? You have this unfair market advantage and you still bankrupt yourself. But I digress. It's not really the point we're talking about. The point is that I don't really think that Donald Trump is as good as he is, as everyone says he is. I think that he's anti-gun. I don't care what he's saying now. I honestly believe that Donald Trump is telling Republicans what they want to hear, and they're choosing to ignore all of his past positions, and that's fine. You can ignore those positions. I mean, that's your right. You can overlook these things and think, okay, well, you know what? I think he's going to be better than Hillary, who is overtly anti-gun, overtly progressive. I think he's going to do better. But as we continue in this election, I think we're going to see Donald Trump lurch further toward the squishy middle, the progressives, and again, we've already seen that. His position with the transgender bathroom issue, which is not something that I even want to talk about. I'm not even interested in this conversation, but his position on that is that they ought to be able to use whatever bathroom they want, and that he's going to allow them to do that in his own property. That's fine. That's fine, but to advocate for the federal government to have some kind of law where it's a civil rights issue and all of this, I don't know if he's going to lean towards that or what. I believe this is a states issue and a property rights issue. Really, that's where I'd like to see it. But I think on the state level, that should be determined by the people of the state. What do they want to do with the public bathrooms, public property? Let the people decide. What does a private business want to do with its property? Let them decide. This is not a federal government issue. It should not be made that. And I think if Donald Trump was truly small government, if Donald Trump was truly a conservative, he would be articulating these points, which I haven't heard him make. It doesn't necessarily mean he hasn't made them, but I'm listening, I'm looking, I'm searching, I'm listening. Again, I live, eat, sleep this stuff. I haven't heard this conversation come out of Donald Trump's mouth. So I disagree that he's going to be any better than Hillary. He may be better on some issues, but Hillary Clinton may be better on other issues. Regardless, they're both terrible. They are both, we talk about lesser of two evils, they're both terrible candidates for anyone who advocates for small government. Limited constitutionalism, limited government constitutionalism. It's not, you're not doing yourself any favors, I think, by voting for Donald Trump. And the way I look at this is, I've already sacrificed my principles 2 elections in a row here since I've really started becoming engaged. And this is to say nothing about the past, because we had Bush and Bush. These guys are progressives too. We haven't really, since Reagan, we haven't voted for a small government advocate who wants to massively shrink the size and scope of government involvement in your life. We haven't had a true free market conservative in a long, long time. And it's really, I'm confused a little bit why we do this. We keep telling ourselves that our ideas can't win. We have to water our ideas down with these progressive candidates who are closer to Democrats than they are to us. Their ideas are closer to the Democratic Party than they are to the Republican Party. We have to water them down to make ourselves marketable. We keep thinking that our ideas, they just can't win. We have to compromise. I think one of our biggest problems, number one, is compromising. We've compromised way too damn much. But secondly, our ideas are better. We have the best ideas. I don't understand. If we present the ideas, if we explain to people why our ideas are better, instead of getting painted in this corner as racist, bigoted Republicans who hate women, who are old white people, who only want to oppress everyone else, and it's part of the crony capitalism thing that we talk, the collusion between big government and big business. This is what we get painted as. I think it does so much damage to have Donald Trump in the office of the presidency representing the Republican Party, the vehicle that conservatives have supposedly been using all this time to convey our message. Again, I've said over and over again that I'm voting for a libertarian. I am #NeverTrump. I'm not going to vote for Trump. I'm not going to vote for any progressives anymore. I'm done with it. Since I've been an adult and voting, and tried to educate myself on the issues. I voted for McCain. I voted for Romney. I felt like I was sacrificing my principles in that situation, but we were told we got to win. We got to win before we can do anything for you. Republicans keep telling us that. They got to win Congress. Okay, we give them both houses of Congress. They do nothing. Now they tell us they need to win the presidency. We got to win the presidency. We got to have all three before we can do anything. I no longer believe that they're going to do anything, especially considering that the Republican Party is rotten to the core with progressives. And I no longer believe that it's the vehicle for conservatives or libertarians, anyone advocating constitutionalism and small government principles. I don't think that it's the way to go anymore. And even more so if Donald Trump wins the presidency. Now, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I will gladly eat some crow. Oh my goodness. If Donald Trump comes in and starts hacking, slashing the government, getting rid of all these different departments, Department of Education, the IRS, pass a flat tax, all of this stuff, gets rid of the EPA, or at least dramatically scales back what they're doing, if suddenly he starts doing all of these things and doesn't go after gun rights and all of the things that I think that he very well may do, he decides not to go ahead and impose tariffs on the free market. If he does all of these things that I don't think he will do, or if he doesn't do the things that I think he will do, and I'm wrong, and if he turns out to be the next Reagan, all right? I mean, even Reagan wasn't Reagan, but I digress. The point is, even if I am wrong, I will gladly eat the crow. I will be happy, and I'll say I was wrong, but I think that's not going to happen. I do not think that this is going to happen, and I think that it is a lot less likely. If we're talking about odds and probability, it's a lot less likely that Donald Trump goes conservative as opposed to progressive. He's lived most of his adult life as a progressive. I think he is a progressive still to this day. I think he's misrepresenting what he believes in order to, again, he's a populist. In order to get what he wants, he's saying what you want to hear. But, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll eat some crow. What I think is going to happen is that he's going to get in office, and a lot of these Republicans who are supporting him, saying he's the lesser of two evils, are going to have a wee bit of buyer's remorse at the end of the day. Because I don't think that he is going to do half of the things he says. I would even be surprised if he built that wall that he's been talking about. I don't know. And honestly, I don't care about the wall. I'm not a big fan of building a wall. I'm a big fan of enforcing our immigration laws and actually trying to get some of the illegals out of the country. Now, I know we've got millions and millions. They say 14, 15, 22 million. We don't even know. We don't know how many illegals are in the country. So, point being, I think that if we actually enforced our immigration laws, got rid of the sanctuary city statuses that a lot of these cities have, and we actually tried to look for some of the illegals and send them back. Granted, we're not going to be able to get them all. Of course, there's millions of them. We just make it. We take away some of the incentive of being here illegal. First of all, you streamline the immigration process. You make it much, much faster to come in here. It should be as long as a background check it takes, a thorough background check, a thorough vetting. And there's no reason why it takes 9 years. They should have to learn the language, English, go through a background check, and they should have to have some kind of plan when they come into the country so they're not getting on welfare. Again, I think this is a great tool. Immigration is an excellent tool that we can use to better our society. We can use immigration to fill slots in our employment sector, in our jobs, that we don't have enough people to fill, enough of our own citizens to fill. For example, we're dramatically lacking two career fields that I know of off the top of my head. Machinists, people who work in machining, and nurses. We need more of those two categories. So if we bring in foreigners who want to be Americans, who want to learn our language, who don't want to just come here and mooch off of our welfare state, we bring people here who are going to be a benefit to our society, as well as people who are going to create jobs, entrepreneurs that want to start their own business, or maybe they already have one in their own home country and they want to expand it to America. They want to be American citizens in the process. that's great too. We can use that. We can benefit from that. Streamline that process. Get those people in here quicker. That disincentivizes people to come here illegally. One of the reasons why so many people come here illegally is because, number one, America is awesome, but number two, the legal process is incredibly long. It takes up to 9-10 years to become a lawful citizen, sometimes longer, and thousands of dollars in this process. So let's streamline that. Let's they talk about immigration reform, which really, if a Clinton is saying that, it means amnesty. I'm for immigration reform in that I think that it should be faster. It should be a more streamlined process. You go after the immigrants in the way of getting rid of the incentive for them to be here illegally. You make it easier for them to come here. You boot the guys out who are here illegally, and then at that point, a lot of people will for fear of deportation, they will self-deport. This has already happened here. We've already seen that happen. So a lot of them will self-deport. In addition, I think that you make it more difficult for them to get employment and work underneath the table. And how I believe that you do that is you open up the free market. You get rid of all the things that are stopping the average American citizen from competing against illegals, because we can't even bargain for less in order to be more competitive. If an illegal will work for $5 an hour and we need a job and the choice is either no job or $5 an hour, we can say, well, yeah, we'll work for $5 or we'll work for $4.50 an hour. We'll work harder, better, whatever. We'll do the same job for less pay. If we brought everyone to an even level as far as the ability to be able to negotiate their wages, I think that would dramatically undercut the illegal immigrants' ability to actually to get employment here. Employers would be able to pay what they want to pay, and employees would be willing to negotiate their wage. I think that, and also all the added benefits that employers have to pay. I think that if an employer wanted to be more competitive in the job market as far as getting employees, giving benefits, that'd be a great incentive to get people to come there. But I don't think that the government should force it. I think the free market should do that, and I think that's how you address the illegal immigration issue, not by building a wall. Now, I'm for border security. I think that we should have border security, but I don't want to make it more difficult on people to leave the country. That's where I stand on the wall. I don't want the wall to keep us in. I want to be able to go out of the country if I want to, but I also want to make sure that we're addressing the issue. It's not just that people are physically coming over the border. It's the reasons why they're coming over the border. They want citizenship in America, either through giving their children citizenship by having them born here, and then those new American citizens that were born here from Mexican parents or illegal immigrant parents, they can now sponsor those illegals to get a visa, and now they come here. So this is, if you go after a lot of their incentives, getting a job that pays more, even if it's under the table, they're getting more than what they'd make in Mexico. If we make sure that they feel like they will be caught, and they could be caught and kicked out, we don't have safe cities, sanctuary cities for them to hide in. Honestly, I don't think this is a very complicated issue. You just go after the root causes. You don't have to worry about building a wall. Again, if you were promised a better life on the other side of a wall, would you not find a way over that wall, under that wall, around that wall? Again, one of our biggest problems that we have here is visa overstays. That is, honestly, that's a lot of what's going on, is people are getting a visa to come into this country, and they're overstaying, and they're not leaving. How does a wall address that problem? It really doesn't. And again, that's why I'm not a fan of the wall. But I digress. As far as Donald Trump, I disagree that he is the lesser of two evils. I don't think he's going to follow through with much of what he's promised and is currently promising. I think you're going to see him lurch further towards the squishy progressive middle when you start talking about the general here. He's going to, as we progress towards November, he's going to progress towards progressivism. I think he thinks that is a populist message, which is why I think he took the position on the transgender bathroom issue. So, again, I just think he's going to disappoint. And as a standard bearer for the Republican Party, I believe what he's going to do is going to destroy the economy, and he's going to permanently brand the Republicans as these crony businessmen, all right? Greedy as in crony, all right? Crony corporatist, colluding with the big government, with big business, creating all these tax loopholes and making it so that the corporations have unfair market advantages. And he's already labeled as a racist by a lot of the people on the left, the Bernie Sanders supporters. They absolutely think that this guy is the worst. He's a billionaire, so they hate him for that, and they think that he's racist. And then his Muslim policy, as far as not allowing Muslims from majority Muslim countries to come into America, which he's kind of backpedaled on a little bit, but still, regardless, the damage is done. And then his endorsement from the KKK, and his refusal to speak out against that endorsement, basically, initially. Now he has, but David Duke is the leader of the KKK who's endorsed him. But I digress. All of these things are what the Republican Party is going to be labeled as. And I think that if the economy does what I think it's going to do underneath a Donald Trump, it will be the pendulum swinging back. If Donald Trump gets elected and I'm wrong, which I don't think I am. I mean, I think the evidence is pretty clear. The Bernie Sanders supporters are not going to vote for Donald Trump. And even though no one, not even Democrats like Hillary Clinton, I think they are going to see Donald Trump as the guy that they're voting against. I mean, you're either a Hillary supporter if you're in the Democrat Party. You're either a Hillary supporter or a Bernie supporter. I don't think that the Bernie supporters ideologically can vote for Donald Trump. I think they'll have to either abstain from voting altogether or vote for Hillary. And I think if they're faced with the lesser of two evils situation that we're talking about on the right, they're going to choose Hillary over Trump. I think. I could be wrong. I could be dramatically wrong. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But I think that a Bernie supporter will not vote for a billionaire businessman with crony capitalist ties and that they believe is the most racist, bigoted man on the planet. And I think that's what's going to be stained on the Republican Party. And then they're going to say, oh, look, the economy crashed underneath him. Republican policies do not work. They do not work, even though tariffs aren't Republican. That's protectionist. It's not conservative. It's not libertarian. It's not small government. It's big government. It's progressive. These policies have been tried and tested and proven to fail. So if the economy does what I believe it will do underneath Donald Trump, the damage to the Republican Party, the Republican brand, will be permanent. I don't think there's any coming back from that. And what the left and the entire squishy middle think about Donald Trump is that he is what the Republican Party stands for. This is what the Republican Party stands for. If he gets elected and he's in front of people and his policies and his positions and his economic policies fail, which they will, I think that albatross is hanging around our neck for the next couple of decades. I think we're headed for, if Donald Trump wins, I think we're headed for disaster. And that will lead us toward a one-party system of Democrats only. Now, again, that's a big prediction. I could be wrong. I don't think I will be. But this is why I'm advocating conservatives. You need to abandon the GOP. Leave it to the squishy middle. Because what that will do is pull away. If the Republican Party, the GOP, turns full-blown progressive as well, and they're actually they're expanded the tent. They've succeeded in expanding the tent, and they filled it up with Democrats while pushing out all of the conservatives. If you want to ostracize your entire base as a party, I think it's a bad move. And I think it could be good for us because what it will do is it will put the GOP in direct competition for Democratic voters if Donald Trump succeeds. And it will create a space at this point for the Libertarian Party because the GOP and the Democrats will be competing for essentially the same voting bloc. The Democrats, the progressives, the squishy middle. Let's move the base over to the Libertarian Party, the conservatives. There is so much room in the party for advocates of small government. We can debate about how we want to get to the small government point. What is the smallest government point that we can get to? We can find out what the smallest point that we can agree on that the government ought to be. Maybe we can't agree that it should be, complete anarcho-capitalism. Maybe we can't agree that the federal government should only have a handful of jobs. But maybe we can find some areas of agreement to massively shrink the government, like getting rid of the IRS, abolishing the IRS, and passing a flat tax. I think we can agree on these things. Libertarians, conservatives, we can agree on this. Let's work together towards these common goals to massively shrink the size of this federal leviathan that's stagnating our economy and making it impossible for us to be competitive in the global market. If we work now to come up with a long-term strategy of rebranding, remarketing, because the Republican Party, if you ask any college-age kid, what does the Republican Party stand for? Racism, bigotry, crony corporatism, those kind of things are going to be thrown in there all the time. Also, hatred of homosexuals, all of this stuff. We need a massive shakabuku here. We need to totally rattle the system. We need to change the way that people look at us, rebrand underneath a different banner. I've been saying this over and over and over again. I don't think we're going to get to what we want using the Republican Party as the vehicle for our values anymore. I don't see this happening. We have to rebrand. And by voting Libertarian, we're probably not going to win this election, and that's fine. It's not fine. We're screwed either way, but let's start thinking long term. We have lost. By the Donald Trump getting the nomination here, we've lost. That was a big loss on the side for small government, constitutionalism, individualist, conservative, libertarian, free market people. All of this was a dramatic loss for us. Now we're forced to choose between the lesser of two evils. And I see no real difference between these parties. That's just me. If I'm right about my predictions, then we're going to continue. If we continue using the Republican Party, we're going to lose and lose and lose. And we'll continue to lose because we're going to have to keep making the same decision to vote against our own principles. How can we ever expect small government principles to prevail? Our arguments to prevail, our ideas to prevail. How do we ever expect these to win if we never vote for them? A rebrand is in order. We have to start doing something else. Einstein said, in this very famous quote, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. Well, what do you expect will happen when you keep voting against your principles, against your ideology, against the Constitution? What do you think is going to happen when you keep doing this over and over and over again, expecting to actually win a victory for the Constitution, for small government advocates? What do you expect? You've been voting against your own ideology all this time. It's no wonder you haven't succeeded, and you think that doing it again this year is going to suddenly change that pattern. It's not. That's why I think it's time for us to put our eggs in the libertarian basket. There's room in the party for conservatives and libertarians. And as a libertarian myself, a small L libertarian, I would welcome conservatives in the party with open arms. And we may not win this year, but if we get 15% of the vote, that will get us on the debate stage, and the rebranding will begin. That's just my thoughts on that. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Give us a call. The number to the show is 360-450-5625. Again, 360-450-5625. You can get us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. You can get us on Twitter @OnTheMoveShow. We'll be right back after these commercial breaks. After this commercial break, you guys don't want to go anywhere.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
I love me some coffee. Alrighty, so this is we're well into the second hour here of the program. By the way, we're only doing a 2-hour show today. Sorry to drop that on you guys, but my voice is not what it should be. I've gotten sick from my wife. She's had a throat thing. I don't know. It's annoying, but I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit. So I apologize if my voice is cracking and I'm coughing and stuff like that. But not, starting to feel my throat get a little raw. You have those when you're getting sick, you feel yourself slowly getting sicker and sicker. That's what I'm feeling right now. So I apologize. So we only got about 27 minutes left in the program, but yeah, we'll have to pick it up next week here for the rest of some of our feature topics here. But let's go ahead and dive into those feature topics. So Bernie Sanders' feud with the Democrat leadership, it's actually heating up here. He's essentially gone on the attack here with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She's the head of the DNC. Let me go ahead and read an article here from the NY Times. Article was written by Yamachi Alcindor. I suck at reading names, I'll tell you. Anyway, this was published May 21st, 2016. So, doubling down on his feud with Democrat Party leadership, Senator Bernie Sanders said that if elected president, he will not reappoint Democratic National Committee chairwoman, Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz of Florida. He made the comments during an interview with CNN's Jake Tapper that is set to air on Sunday. I actually saw this earlier. Maybe I'll go ahead and find that interview. Mr. Sanders also said that he was supporting Tim Canova, a law professor who has begun an insurgent campaign against Mrs. Wasserman Schultz for her South Florida congressional seat. They will face off in a primary this summer. Well, I clearly favor her opponent, Mr. Sanders told Mr. Tapper. His views are much closer to mine. So I'm assuming he's a avowed socialist as well. For months, Mr. Sanders has accused the party of favoring Hillary Clinton, often calling her the anointed candidate. He has criticized the party for a debate schedule that his campaign says favors Mrs. Clinton, an arrangement under which Mrs. Clinton raises money for the party, and the appointment of Clinton supporters as leaders of important convention committees. Most recently, he said that he and the party have sparred over what happened at the Nevada Democratic Convention a week ago. There, Sanders supporters disrupted the proceedings in a fight over delegates, and the state party chairwoman was later threatened. After the party rebuked Mr. Sanders for not clearly condemning what had occurred, his campaign manager, Jeff Weaver, accused Ms. Wasserman Schultz of throwing shade on the Sanders campaign from the very beginning. This week, Ms. Wasserman Schultz pushed back against the Sanders campaign in an interview with CNN. We've had the same rules in place that elected Barack Obama, she told the network. These rules were adopted for state parties all across the country in 2014. In a statement on Saturday, she said that even though Senator Sanders has endorsed my opponent, I remain, as I have been from the beginning, neutral in the presidential Democratic Party, or primary. Okay, so let me see if I can find this on YouTube here. Let's see. I will YouTube Bernie Sanders, Debbie Wasserman. Let's see here. Debbie Wasserman. Sorry, I hate reading this stuff online, but I don't want to sit here quietly while I'm looking at this here. So, nope, I can't. Breaking: DNC screws Bernie Sanders campaign after voted date. No, that's old news. Let's see if I can. Let me see if I can filter this down. Bernie Sanders makes it clear Debbie Wasserman should not. Oh, here we go. But this is 10 minutes. I don't want to do 10 minutes with you guys here on this. Liberal pundits blame Debbie Wasserman Schultz, not Bernie Sanders. No. Okay, so let me see if I can filter this down to what happened today. What's on here today? Just the 10-minute one. Sanders, this is newsy. This sucks. Okay. All right, we're just going to play it. Let's hear some Bernie.
Clinton is, of course, anxious to turn her full attention to Donald Trump, and a new poll out this morning shows them neck and neck. The new numbers are a statistical dead heat, with Trump at 46%, Clinton at 44%. That's an 11-point surge for Donald Trump since March. And joining us now from Las Cruces, New Mexico, is Senator Bernie Sanders. Senator, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So let's start with the obvious question. There are a lot of Democratic officials and office holders concerned that the tone and tenor of this Democratic race have gotten so negative that it could cost Hillary Clinton, who is likely going to be the nominee, the general election, by convincing independents and progressives who support you that she is corrupt and that the only reason you're not going to get the nomination is because the fix is in. What do you tell those people when they call you and express this concern?
Nothing that I have, Jake, that's nothing that I have ever said. The last I heard is that we are a democratic country and that elections are about vigorous debates over the issues. Secretary Clinton and I disagree. I think we should, on many issues, I think we should raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour.
Let's stop right there. Craziness. Well, first, let's just go with this. Let's go with it. Why not $75 an hour? Why not $100? Why not $1,000 an hour, Bernie? Why not? Of course, it sounds ridiculous when you say that. Just like I think it sounds ridiculous to be an advocate of $15 or any minimum wage. What you're advocating for, Bernie, is forcing people against their will as employers to pay more money than what their employees are worth. And then you're also forcing the employees to accept more money than what they might otherwise accept. Again, we mentioned the not being marketable. So this is actually a racist and a sexist policy, and let me explain why. We'll just go ahead and touch on this subject here for a second. I wanted to get into the Debbie Wasserman thing, but this is a long video, so let's. I can't leave this unsaid. Can't leave it unsaid. So why is a minimum wage sexist and racist? Because it does not actually allow people who may need to compete. For example, if there's an employer, I made this is actually from Milton Friedman, an example from Milton Friedman. If there's an employer who's a bigot and he hates women and African American people, let's just make that example, and he only wants to hire white people, well, having a minimum wage makes it so that he doesn't have to pay any more to hire a white person over a black person or a woman. All right, he's paying $15 no matter who he hires, so he's going to have to pay more to be a bigot. I'm sorry, he won't have to pay more to be a bigot. But in a free market, in a society where there is no minimum wage, the women and the minorities that are being discriminated against, they can offer to work for less Okay, so if the white people, if they want $15 an hour, and the black people say, all right, I'll work for 13. Women say I'll work for 12, or everybody has to negotiate at that point. At this point, if the bigoted employer wants to only hire white people, he's going to have to pay more. It's going to cost him money to be a racist, to be a bigot, to be a sexist. In my personal opinion, number one, I want to know who the bigots in my society are. I want to know. And I want to know because they don't have any fear of telling their opinion, of speaking their mind, of saying where they stand. I don't want them to have any fear of being a bigot because I want to see so I know who to avoid. If you get what I'm saying. But in a society where we have all these punitive damages and things like that, if somebody was a bigot or a racist to somebody, or denied service or employment to somebody because of their gender or their race or something along those lines, they can just come up with any reason at all why they're doing what they're doing, why they're denying services to anybody. They can just make up any reason, and because they're afraid of saying that they're a bigot because it's illegal. We'll never know why. So number one, I want to know who are the racists out there, so I can avoid doing business with them. But also, I want women and minorities and people who are being discriminated against in general, I want you to be able to compete. I want you to have the choice, the ability to choose what you're going to work for. And I want you to be able to be competitive. And also, I think it's a good idea that in this scenario, in this example that Milton Friedman provides, that the employer should have to pay more because he only wants to employ white people. If that's, if we're saying that white people get paid more statistically than minorities and women, this is the false narrative that we hear all the time from the left. We always hear about the wage gap, the gender wage gap, which is a myth if you account for all the other factors. But anyway, let's listen to more from Bernie Sanders. I think at some point he's going to get into, this is a long video. I hope it doesn't take the whole 10 minutes for him to get into the conversation with about Debbie Wasserman Schultz. But here we go.
I think we should join the rest of the industrialized world and have a Medicare for all health care program. I think we have got to have a tax on carbon if we're going to effectively deal with the crisis of climate change. She and I...
Craziness. And again, carbon, they like to use the word carbon because it sounds dirtier, but carbon is a odorless, colorless, tasteless gas that is actually a food for plants. And the argument has been made that it is it's a pollutant. But again, all of the computer models, like in the high 90s, if I'm remembering right, of percentage of how many of these computer models have been incorrect, over 90%, I think, have been incorrect. And this is what the data is based on, is these computer climate change models. So the science is not settled. Let's just say that. And you want to completely tax carbon emission. Again, every time you breathe out, you produce carbon. They want to tax that as a pollutant, and they don't think that's going to destroy the economy, destroy jobs, make it harder for people to make things here in America. Again, the only way to produce wealth is to produce a good or a service. If you're going to make it more difficult to produce a good and service because you're taxing production, obviously you're going to have less production, which means you're going to have less wealth. That's the only way to create wealth that we've discovered, other than just printing money. And that's not wealth. You're making money. You're not making wealth. Every dollar you print, every dollar you digitize makes all the money in circulation less valuable. It makes it worth less and less, and eventually worthless. It's completely worthless. All right. So, and this is one thing I don't understand. Democrats say they use the sin tax to tax cigarettes, alcohol, things like that, and they understand that if you tax something, you get less of it. So they tax cigarette use, cigarette purchases, and they get less of it. That they have said this, they acknowledge this concept, and they understand it in that avenue. But for some reason, they don't get that if you tax production, you'll get less production. They don't seem to understand that they have a disconnect there. Here's more from Bernie.
Disagreed on the war in Iraq. Those are legitimate issues to debate. What we are trying to do is bring more people into the political process, including many, many independents, young people, and working class people, and I think we have been doing that just fine. And what the Democratic leadership has got to understand is that not all of my supporters go to these fancy fundraising dinners. They are working people who are hurting now, who want real change in the economy, and I hope the Democratic leadership understands. They've got to open up the process, bring those people in.
Take a look at what you said about pledged versus superdelegates when you were campaigning in Santa Fe, New Mexico on Friday.
Now, we have received up to now 46% of the pledged delegates. We have received all of 7% of the superdelegates.
All right, so before we get into, because I think they're about ready to get into the Debbie Wasserman Schultz conversation, but so this is one of the things that I've been talking about as far as these superdelegates. Bernie Sanders only got 7%, but he keeps winning and winning and winning in these statewide primaries. He's won a lot. So I am concerned. I don't know what will happen here. Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball, but I think that there will be some issues, some outrage that is happening, potentially riots at the Democrat National Convention if the superdelegates just decide, again, 7%. This has been one hell of a race that Bernie's been running, and he's only got 7% of the support of these political insiders. This is the establishment power brokers of the DNC who are voting for Hillary, even though she's been losing and getting her butt mopped all around here, So this is a lot closer of a fight than the superdelegate count would have you believe. I think we're witnessing a rift inside the Democratic Party, and again, I think that when it comes down to it, I think that if there's a revolt within the DNC, we could potentially see Bernie Sanders be the Democrat nominee. I think it's unlikely. But if the party is threatening to fracture from within, I don't see how the superdelegates, which are the ones who hold the keys here, they're the ones with all the control, they don't simply change their vote. If they're concerned about the party falling apart from within, I don't see how this couldn't happen. But I think that if Hillary Clinton does get the nomination, there will probably be riots coming out of this convention, and at the end of the day, I honestly, because most of the Democrats I talk with, they vote for somebody because of feelings, not necessarily policy or ideology. They feel good about who they're voting. And it also says something about themselves who they vote for. It says that they're a smart, erudite person, a very progressive individual, or they care about others based on their vote. So I don't think that, for the most part, they are philosophical or ideological. There's a subsection, there's a base, obviously, just like conservatives, there's a base within the party as well. But the majority is this squishy middle. And I think that if faced with the decision between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, they're either going to stay at home or go vote for Clinton. I really don't believe that we're going to convince enough of them to vote Trump. So either way, we have Bernie Sanders, which I think this would be a scary proposition. I think Bernie Sanders would mop the floor with Donald Trump in the general. I don't want that to happen. I would have loved to see America make the decision between Bernie Sanders and Ted Cruz. That would have been amazing. I would have loved to see that conversation, that national conversation. And let's finally pick. Are we going to go towards the Constitution again? Are we going to reaffirm our Constitution? Or are we going to just completely disregard it and move towards socialism? Let's choose. Let's choose now. Before it's too late, honestly. I think that the longer we wait on this, if the conservatives don't rebrand and we continue just voting against our own principles by nominating these lukewarm progressive candidates that aren't ideological, or at least not ideological in our favor, of being small government, conservative, libertarian, constitutionalist, free market. If we continue to wait, as time goes on, we are continuing to progress towards progressivism. And I think it's going to be too late pretty soon. It may already be too late, honestly. I think we have to start over on our efforts. Again, I've been mentioning this whole episode, but I digress. Here's Bernie. He should be talking about Debbie Wasserman Schultz, this little feud with them right now.
We're making a point about the superdelegates, but what you left out of that data is that while it's true you have roughly 46% of the pledged delegates, Secretary Clinton has roughly 54% of them. And what you've achieved is remarkable, and there's no one that disputes that. Yet at this hour, it seems unlikely that you'll actually achieve the majority of the pledged delegates. Can you see how that might leave the impression that...
No, I assume that most of the people who come to my rallies can do arithmetic. If I have 46%, she has 54%. The point that I was making is there's something absurd when I get 46% of the delegates that come from real contests, real elections, and 7% of the superdelegates. And the point that I made a few minutes after that is that some 400 of Hillary Clinton's superdelegates came on board her campaign before anybody else announced.
Absolutely true.
It was an anointment.
Yeah.
Okay, and that is bad for the process. It would seem to me that superdelegates want to see how the process unfolds. Who was the stronger candidate? As you well know, and disagree with me now if you want, but virtually every poll taken in the last 2 months has me doing better against Trump than Hillary Clinton.
Well, okay. One thing about that poll, a lot of experts I've talked to, political experts, including people who like you a lot, say that, first of all, you can't base an argument about what should happen in November based on polls in May. But beyond that, it's just empirically, you have not withstood the kind of decades-long beating that Hillary Clinton has, not to mention the year-long difficult coverage that Donald Trump has. Do you dispute that? You really think that the kind of coverage has been as piercing and as critical of you as it has been on the other two?
Hey, check out some of the TV ads that were run against me in 2006 when I ran for the United States Senate. Very ugly, very vicious, and a lot of crap has been out there, dishonest stuff about me. I believe the reason, and I say this with all due respect to Secretary Clinton, I'm not saying she cannot beat Donald Trump. I think she can. There's a good chance she can. I am the stronger candidate because we appeal to independence.
I am the stronger candidate because I can lift 15-pound dumbbells without hearing any of my muscles crack a pop. It's two senior citizens arguing about who's stronger. That's funny.
People who are not in love with either the Democratic or the Republican Party, often for very good reasons.
Right.
And the issues that we are talking about, income and wealth inequality, the influence of Wall Street, the fact that we're the only major country not to guarantee health care to all or paid family and medical leave, those are resonating among people who support me in a way that Secretary Clinton is not getting support.
Senator, so you're out on the trail every day talking about your goal, which remains to secure a majority of the pledged delegates. Should we assume that that means you believe the candidate who has the majority of pledged delegates by the end of this process should be the nominee?
This is what I believe. I believe and look, I am good at arithmetic, and I understand that it is a very, very uphill fight to go from 46% where we are today to 50% in the 9 remaining contests. I got that. But the other point, and we're going to try, California obviously is the big race that remains. We think we have a chance to do very well in California and in New Jersey, etc. But what I also believe, it's incumbent upon some of these superdelegates, people who came on board Clinton's campaign before anyone else was in the race, to take an objective look at which candidate is stronger. And it's not just polls, Jake. Democrats and progressives win when there is a large voter turnout. Republicans win when people are demoralized and don't come out to vote. Any objective assessment of our campaign versus Clinton's campaign, I think will conclude we have the energy, we have the excitement, we have the young people, we have the working people. We can drive a large voter turnout so that we not only win the White House, but we regain control of the Senate, do well in the House, and win governor's chairs up and down the line.
But with all due respect, sir, she has more votes than you, and she has more pledged delegates. She has more pledged delegates than you, and the question is just a simple yes or no. Should the candidate with the most pledged delegates at the end of the process, June 7th, after New Jersey and California, the last contests, should the person with the most pledged delegates be the Democratic nominee?
Well, I think if that was the only criteria, then you get rid of all of the superdelegates, which may not be a bad idea. But you do have superdelegates. You got 700 superdelegates. And I am not a great fan of superdelegates, but their job is to take an objective look at reality. And I think the reality is that we are the stronger candidate. So we will see what happens, Jake.
So you actually think, you think it would be okay for the pledged delegates, the majority of Democratic voters, to pick one candidate and then the superdelegates to actually go with a different candidate? You're not suggesting that.
Well, it's very funny. It's very funny that you asked me that question when you had 400 pledged delegates come on board Clinton's campaign before anyone else was in the race. That's called an anointment process. That's called the establishment talking. That's called the big money interest saying, this is who we want.
But the process
we are where we are right now.
And
we are right now, Jake.
Right.
And where we are is we are fighting to win the pledged delegates. So before I can answer your question, let's see what's going to happen. But if you do have, if your argument is let's get rid of all the superdelegates, that may not be a bad idea.
Well, would you? Well,
they are there, and I think.
So let's talk about that. Let's pursue that, because no matter what, whether you get the nomination or you don't, you're going to have a seat at the table when it comes to what is in the Democratic Party platform. You're going to have influence on what happens.
By the way, I hope you guys are interested in this. I know this is not our side of the table talking, but I think this does give us a little bit of insight into what's going on with the party. I know we have to be getting close. We're at 8 minutes and 33 seconds of a 10-minute and 40-second video. We got to be getting close to the Debbie Wasserman thing here. I think this is, for me, I'm entertained. I'm interested in this dynamic. And I do think it's kind of interesting to hear Bernie make the argument. And I honestly, I think in the general, Bernie would do better than Hillary. He does have the excitement, even though Hillary has the establishment at her back and has received more votes. He's actually, it's kind of interesting because he's been talking about Bernie. He's been railing against these superdelegate processes. He has less votes. From what I remember, I think Hillary Clinton has about 3 million more votes than he does. So he's talked about how undemocratic the superdelegate process is, which I agree. But he's actually advocating for these superdelegates to change their vote and vote for the guy who's received less votes, which is incredibly undemocratic. I don't care because I'm not a Democrat, and I don't even like democracy. I like Republican forms of governance. But this is what he's been talking about. Last I checked, we were a democracy. Even though we're a republic, a constitutional republic. But I digress. We're getting close to Bernie talking about Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So I know I said we're going to quit at 10. We're going to at least finish up this one topic here before we move on here. So here we go.
Happens no matter what, nominee or not. Should the party do away with superdelegates?
I think they should very much. I think we need a serious discussion about the role of superdelegates. Clearly, the current situation is undemocratic. It is ill-advised, and it needs to change. To what degree, I would like to see a change. We are talking about that right now. But the status quo clearly is not acceptable to me, and that has got to be changed. And I think what has got to happen at the platform is the Democratic platform, whether I'm the nominee or not, has got to stand up for the middle class and working class of this country, has got to be prepared to take on Wall Street and the greed of corporate America, the outrageous level of income and wealth inequality in this country, and make it clear to every middle class family in America, we are on the side of the middle class, the young people, the workers of this country, not Wall Street, not the greed of corporate America.
Last question, sir. Your campaign and many of your supporters have argued that Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the chair of the Democratic National Committee, has not been neutral in her position as chair. Your campaign manager, Jeff Weaver, in particular, has been very critical. She is being challenged right now in a primary by Tim Canova. He is a law professor who opposes the Pacific trade deal that you oppose. He supports you. He's already raised $1 million. You've been calling for a revolution in Florida. Are you with Wasserman Schultz, or are you with her opponent?
Well, clearly I favor her opponent. His views are much closer to mine than Wasserman Schultz's. And let me also say this, in all due respect to the current chairperson, if elected president, she would not be reappointed to be chair of the DNC.
Senator Bernie Sanders, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Good luck out there in the campaign trail.
All righty. So all of that time just to get to that one little thing right at the end of the video. Of course, it's the very last question that was asked. So anyway, there is this internal feud going on. I'm interested to see how this will turn out. I think there are probably going to be some conflict at the DNC convention, but I don't imagine that that this is going to be a revolt and that these Bernie Sanders supporters are going to vote for Donald Trump. I think that ideologically they are against Donald Trump because of all the reasons I've talked about. He's a billionaire. They hate billionaires, and they think that he's this racist Republican, even though he spent more of his life as a Democrat than a Republican. But I digress. Before we actually move on here, because we got to take off here. As I said, going to end the show after 2 hours today. But before I do, I want to actually touch on some of the things that I said were the feature topics. Some of the things that we've seen here this week. First of all, Little Sisters of the Poor. You may be familiar with this topic. This is an article on Liberty Canon Media written by Taryn, I believe is the name that's on this. Taryn. The article was May 16th, 2016. Let me just go ahead and read over here real fast for you. So the Catholic Institute for Women, known as Little Sisters of the Poor, has just pulled off what amounts to a legal victory over the forced coverage of contraceptives through Obamacare or Affordable Care Act. Although the Supreme Court didn't make any judgments on the merits of the case, the news is a twofold win for the Little Sisters of the Poor. In summary, Supreme Court vacated a lower court ruling that decided the sisters must provide access to contraception. That lower ruling also denied that providing contraceptives significantly conflicted with the sisters' religion. Therefore, the fact that this lower court ruling was vacated is good news in itself. The second half of the good news is the fact that the Supreme Court paved a way for the conflict to be resolved by outlining an accommodation. NRO's David French explains. Second, the Supreme Court provided a roadmap for an excellent resolution to the case. By outlining the accommodation it suggested, Little Sisters endorsed, and the government reluctantly agreed to. Following oral argument, the court requested supplemental briefing from the parties addressing whether contraceptive coverage could be provided to petitioners' employees through petitioners' insurance companies without any such notice from petitioners. Post P, I don't know what that is. That must be a page number or something. Both petitioners and the government now confirm that such an option is feasible. Petitioners have clarified that their religious exercise is not infringed where they need do nothing more than contract for a plan that does not include coverage for some or all forms of contraceptions, even if their employees receive cost-free contraceptive coverage from the same insurance company. Supplemental brief for petitioners 4. The government has confirmed that the challenged procedures for employers with insurance plans can be modified to operate in a manner posited in the court's order while ensuring that the affected women receive contraceptive coverage seamlessly together with the rest of their health coverage. This accommodation is more powerful of the sisters' religious liberty rights. Is more respectful. I don't know why I said powerful. This accommodation is more respectful of the sisters' religious liberty rights than the regulations outlined in Obamacare. And according to French, the government would have extreme difficulty incredibly arguing that the Supreme Court's own suggested compromise be dismissed. Although this is an outright victory, though this isn't an outright victory, the absence of Justice Antonin Scalia would have made it difficult for the sisters to win the case on merit. French concludes that the decision is a victory for religious victory in the medium term. There's no doubt that it would have been preferable to win the case on the merits, but this is not the outcome the Obama administration hoped for, and it's better than a 4-4 tie that most people predicted. A tie would have let standing rulings against the Little Sisters of the Poor and most of the religious organizations challenging the mandate. This outcome, by contrast, provides a judicial roadmap for a national victory for religious liberty. Congratulations to the Little Sisters. Congratulations to the Little Sisters, their fellow petitioners, and their capable counsel. Today is a good day for America's first freedom. So, I wanted to mention that because it's interesting. There's a lot going on with that. First of all, we are only at 8 justices on the Supreme Court. So this could have been a tie, and then it could have been bad. But I think this compromise, at least, it's a step in the right direction. Let's see. Another topic here. The other feature topic we had is Hillary Clinton's attack on the Second Amendment. So Hillary's been in the news recently. Gun rights here. Let's see what she says. Hillary Clinton, gun rights. Hillary Clinton on gun control. Late night. No, I don't want to talk about that. We've have her all over the place talking about gun control recently here. If I can just find, I didn't actually prepare for this topic effectively today. Let's see here. This week we'll filter by Hillary Clinton vows to outlaw guns and secret recording. This is actually what I wanted to talk about. This is Alex Jones, so take that with a grain of salt. Here goes.
Here's a short clip of Hillary in a secret speech to her minions, her ring wraiths, that she will get those guns. Here it is.
I'm going to do everything I can to rally people against this pernicious, corrupting influence of the NRA. I was proud when my husband took them out and we were able to ban assault weapons, but he had to put a sunset on. So 10 years later, of course, Bush wouldn't agree to reinstate them.
Bush pushed the assault weapons ban. The Republican leadership tried to...
All right, I'm not interested in what Alex Jones has to say. Just to give you a heads up, she is attacking not only the NRA, but gun rights as well. This is one of the things that we've seen frequently on the left, how they are continuing to attack gun rights and demonize the NRA. Now, the NRA, I think, they do a lot of good work, but they try to control the pace, as we talked about last week with C.J. Grisham. There are some things that they're just not interested in fighting for, and one of those things is open carry. So, I would throw way more support towards the NRA if they change their policy on compromising and on some of the things that they have as far as open carry as well. One of the things that I actually want to get to here, and we'll wrap up the show after this. Actually, you know what? No, I'm going to save this for next week. I think this will be good. I picked up a magazine. I was in I think it was a thrift store, and I picked up a magazine this week. I believe this is Leo Weekly. I don't know what this is, but it's the big picture here on the front of the cover. It says, "Welcome NRA, 3 things to know about guns in Louisville." And I was up in Louisville at a thrift store, I think, when I bought this. And then I was looking at the editor's note, and they have a Dear National Rifle Association. This gentleman, the guy who wrote this, his name is Aaron Yarmouth from Leo Weekly. He's basically talking all the leftist talking points about why the NRA is bad and why guns are bad. And it starts out with really wish you'd just go away. Again, this is Dear National Rifle Association. Really wish you'd just go away. Not leave town, disappear, like evaporate. In lieu of that, however, welcome to Louisville, our compassionate possibility city. And then he goes on. We're going to start with that next week. And I'm going to take apart his arguments, all of his stuff. I thought it would be fun. I went ahead and saved the newspaper just for that purpose. But anyway, Hillary Clinton's coming after your guns. And FYI, Donald Trump has, in the past, supported, quote-unquote, assault rifle bans, which is, you're talking about banning commonly used semi-automatic rifles. Again, these are not assault weapons, but this is the code word that the left has used to make it. Again, these are focus group tested words to make people feel what the kind of feelings that the Democrats want. They want you to be afraid. They don't want you to. they know what words to use, even if it doesn't fit these. An assault rifle is not a semi-automatic rifle. It's a full auto weapon or a weapon capable of select fire. They're not assault rifles that they're talking about. They're lumping in commonly owned semi-automatic weapons into this category where it doesn't fit. So we're going to take this argument apart. Hillary Clinton's after that. Donald Trump has in the past. I think he still is. Again, he talks about how he's very pro-gun. And, you know, I've had some friends say, oh, look, what do you think about Donald Trump? He supports the Second Amendment. I'm not a one-issue guy, FYI. I'm a several-issue guy. I'm a constitutional issue. I'm a freedom, a liberty guy. So my idea as far as what Donald Trump thinks on the Second Amendment, I honestly believe that Donald Trump thinks that, you know, he's just going to pander and say what he wants, say what people want to hear, like stuff that doesn't have a whole lot of substance. Like, you know, I like guns. He's talked about how he didn't like gun-free zones. One thing I find interesting, though, is that Donald Trump does not allow guns in his hotels. All right, his hotels are gun-free zones. So he talks about being against guns. He's got every right to do that as a property owner. His private property, he can do what he wants. But I don't think that it's very consistent with his arguments against gun-free zones to be a proprietor of a business where he has gun-free zones. So I digress. Anyway, I just don't trust him. Don't trust Hillary. Your right to keep and bear arms may not be touched under Donald Trump. Maybe. We're flipping a coin here. We know for a fact that Hillary Clinton will go after them. I think either way it's lose-lose, and I'm all for this rebranding process that I've been talking about. The Libertarian Party is where conservatives ought to go, and it's time for us to stop voting against our values. How do you ever expect to win your ideology, your values, your principles? How do you ever expect, first of all, to win, to have your values win in the end? But also, how do you expect to convert people to your values? How do you expect to change people's minds and educate them on why your ideas are better if you continue to water your own ideas down and you never put them in front of people in their pure form? How do you do that? I think this is one of the reasons why we're losing, in addition to the fact that the left controls the culture, the media. They also control our educational systems. Honestly, what I would love to see change, I've been giving a lot of thought, and I'm going to leave it with this. This is going to be the last point of the show. One of the things I would love to see is what I think is a small act that would change the dynamic, change how quickly we're headed towards this cliff of progressivism, of socialism. I would love to see every single federal law on the books have a sunset. Every single one. Make it so you can only introduce one bill at a time. Each bill has to have just one item in it. You can't fill it full of all this pork and have all this extra crap with it. If you did that, that would make it so that having that sunset, each bill is up for grabs, up for debate each and every time. Have it have like an 8-year sunset or something. So every 8 years, the Congress they have to pass this law again. They have to get a consensus again, and it can only be one law at a time, one item at a time in this law. So that would keep it from them slipping a whole bunch of pork into the law. What that would do is keep our Congress so busy on just keeping the laws in place that we currently have, and give us an opportunity to win some ground over where we have an unjust law that's finally up for debate again after the 8-year sunset is over. You know, we could filibuster, we could stop that law from going through, and it wouldn't be combined with all these other stuff. So if we're filibustering this, and they're like, well, here's a thing, it also gives a bunch of money to kids in school or something. You know, we're not being demonized by, you know, filibustering a law that has all this extra pork in it for causes that some people may think are good. So we're able to just focus on just one issue at a time. It's not all the pork, and it's up for debate again in another 8 years. And if they don't pass it, it's the law is repealed. I think that would be a great way. It would keep Congress so busy focusing on all the stuff that they have to continue fighting. The bigger the Leviathan gets, the busier that the Congress will get. And it will make them keep their focus internally instead of trying to pass new laws and they won't have time or as much time to focus on passing new laws. I think if we could do that through constitutional amendment, that would be a massive blow to the federal Leviathan, to the statists out there who are trying to increase the government in every aspect of our life. Just something to think about. I've got some other ideas too, like another one, and I'm not going to fully explain this one, but you imagine if we had 3 presidents, shared presidency? I think that would be pretty cool. Think about it. Anyway, we'll be back next week at our regular time. That's 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I want to give a shout out to the Mac Pack. Thanks so much for tuning in, gang, week after week. You guys are the tip of the spear. You're why I do this show, so thank you so much. Also, I want to give a shout-out to Brett Sanders for joining us on the show. I really had a good time talking with him, and I'd love to have him back on again sometime. So thanks, Brett, for that. And for those of you who are, who are new to the program, feel free to check us out at our website, OnTheMoveShow.com. By the way, we have a new shirt on our website, on our shop on there. You click the shop link. We got a store with original T-shirt designs. We've got... we've got the Bear Arms T-shirt. It's a picture of a bear with the word arms written on it. We got the I Heart Open Carry shirt, one of my favorite ones. I got them coming in the mail. I got 2 of those that I ordered coming in the mail. I'm excited to see those, get my hands on them. I'm going to make an unboxing video on our YouTube channel for that. Then we also have the Be Libertarian shirt, which I think is super cool. All these designs are original, made by my wife, who's an awesome graphic designer. If you need any graphic design service, by the way, get her at Latasha Worley, Latosha, at Worley, Worley, at gmail.com. She can give you graphic design services for almost anything. And we also, on the store, we've got our newest shirt. It's the #NeverTrump T-shirt. Really awesome design. And it'll piss off a lot of people. And I can tell you, just from sharing it around the interwebs, I've had a lot of interesting conversations about that. So check that out. That's OnTheMoveShow.com. On our shop, just click the shop link on there. You'll see everything there. All of our T-shirts that we have for sale there. And, don't forget to... check us out on our podcast. You can follow us here. We broadcast every Sunday, like I said, at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can get us on Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. I would certainly appreciate it if you follow us there. Like us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Follow us on Twitter.com/OnTheMoveShow. Subscribe to us on YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow. And as always, know your rights, assert your rights, get on the move.